spend so much time trying to fake it to make it in order to at least give the impression I know who I am and what I'm doing.
But Dr. Tony Evans says external appearances will never change our internal realities.
Life becomes meaningless and without purpose when it gets disconnected from God and eternity.
This is The Alternative with Dr. Tony Evans, author, speaker, senior pastor of Oak Cliff Bible Fellowship in Dallas, Texas, and president of the Urban Alternative. Imagine how different life could be if we devoted more attention to how we are than we did to how we look. That's Dr. Evans' subject today as he takes us to Ecclesiastes chapter 2 for a look at moving from vanity to victory.
My oldest daughter, Crystal, when she was growing up, loved to do something. She loved to put together puzzles. When Christmas time came around, my mother and I would always know we would have to buy a puzzle for Crystal to put together. She loved the challenge of taking that which was disconnected and connecting it to give whatever picture on the box was to be the result of connecting the pieces of the puzzle together. On one occasion, after she had demonstrated the ability to do this quite well and was putting together puzzles fairly quickly, we brought her a 1,000-piece puzzle. Of course, this puzzle had a large amount of pieces connected to it that she had to make sense of and connect. It wasn't too long before she came in to our room from the table in which she was working on the puzzle with great frustration. And she came in and said, "Dad, I can't do this." I said, "Why?" And she said, "Because it's got too many pieces. It's too complicated. It's got too much. And it's not working. It's not coming together." If we were to look at our lives, sometimes you get to the point where it has too many pieces. Things aren't working out right. They aren't connecting. They aren't intersecting. And so you can't get the picture right. There are some here today who the picture of your life now is not what you dreamt it to be. You had dreams that it would go this way. You would have accomplished this. You would have achieved that. And it's just not coming together. Perhaps you thought your career would go this way and it's gone that way. Perhaps you thought your relationship would go this way and it's gone that way. And it just does not fit. Doesn't make sense. So the question on the floor in our series, which is called The Eternal Perspective, is how do you put life together so that it works? What I'm going to share with you now will lend a great helping hand to you not having a life that does not work. If you want to lose weight, you probably wouldn't go to an obese nutritionist or doctor. If you want to grow hair, you probably wouldn't go to a hairless person. In other words, you want the person you go to for advice to be an illustration of what you're looking for help with in your own life. So when it comes to living life, God chose a person who would be the best qualified to teach us about it. Not only did he choose the best person, he chose the person who I am going to talk about today to write a whole book in the Bible about your life and mine coming from his life, and his life is the illustration. So there's one whole book in the Bible written about your life and how to live it and how not to live it. 12 full chapters written about that one subject. The man's name is Solomon. The book God gave him to write was Ecclesiastes. If anyone is qualified to tell you about life, it's Solomon. I mean, here is a man who was born with a silver spoon in his mouth. He was the son of a king. Here's a man who had 700 wives and 300 girlfriends, so you know he should have been a happy fella. And yet, when he opens up his book, in Ecclesiastes chapter 1, the first 3 verses says, the words of the preacher, the son of David, king in Jerusalem, vanity of vanities, says the preacher, vanity of vanities, all is vanity. What advantage does man have in all his work which he does under the sun? Solomon opens up his book and he tells you when he opens the book, I don't have anything to talk about. The word vanity means emptiness, worthlessness, that which is without purpose. He opens up his book talking about his emptiness. If any man shouldn't have been empty, should have been Solomon. He had everything you and I dream for, long for, and go after. And yet his first words, it's vanity of vanities, saith the preacher. All of life is vanity. It's like the man who said, I was dying to finish high school so that I could go to college. Then I was dying to finish college so I could start my career. Then I was dying to get married so I could start a family. Then I was dying for my kids to get 18 so they could leave. Then I was dying to retire, only to discover now I'm just dying. Never quite sure while I was living. Emptiness, purposelessness. And that's why we spend so much time trying to find something to turn us on, to light our fire, to give us a sense of worth, significance, and well-being. But wouldn't you know it? Soon as you look like you found it, you lose it. It's like when you score a touchdown in life, something crosses the goal line and you feel like, yeah. Looks like soon as that happens, somebody blows a whistle and calls the playback. Or like the 4th of July when the firecracker goes up in the air and you get this explosion of lights. And you're excited for a minute, but then after a moment, things get dark again. Because we long for that thing that will give us a sense of substance, significance, and worth. Something that will give you value. For so many people, life is like poking your finger into a glass of water, lifting it up and watching the hole you don't leave behind. Because as soon as you impact it, boom, it's gone. The hole is filled up. So purposelessness is what Solomon wants to talk to you and me about. You know, people spend so much time trying to fake it to make it in order to at least give the impression I know who I am and what I'm doing. It's like the man who had a beware of dog sign when there was no dog. We put on clothes to give the sign I am somebody. We drive cars to give the sign I am significant. We hang out with folk who will give others the impression I am somebody because I hang out with them. Solomon's message is very simple. If you forget everything I say in the next few moments, remember this. Because if you remember this, you will have remembered everything. Solomon's point is that when life gets disconnected from God and eternity, it inevitably becomes meaningless. Let me say it another way. Life becomes meaningless and without purpose when it gets disconnected from God and eternity. The whole 12 chapters of the book of Ecclesiastes is about life under the sun. Under the sun means on earth, in time and space, where men live, work, play, raise families. That's life under the sun, where humanity operates. He says when your life under the sun gets disconnected from life above the sun, when your life, my life, our lives gets disconnected from God and an eternal perspective, you can expect to be able to say, as he says, vanity of vanity, saith the preacher. All is vanity.
Dr. Evans will come back with more about Solomon's journey of self-discovery in just a moment. First, though, if you're ready to start making some spiritual discoveries of your own, we'd like to offer you some help in the form of Tony's current teaching series, The Eternal Perspective. This brand new 10-part collection will help you see the big picture of why your ministry matters, what it means to be truly rich, and how to live a forever kind of life while you're still here on earth. Contact us at tonyevans.org for details on the series, The Eternal Perspective. And if you do it right away, it's yours as our gift when you help support Tony's ministry here on this station with a contribution of any amount, large or small. I'll tell you how you can get in touch with us right after this word from Dr. Evans.
We really need friends who will partner with us, pray for us, so that we can keep the word going forth. You know, we're seeing lives changed in over 100 countries around the world, and of course, countless thousands here in our own country because of the word of God that goes out over the broadcast. And it's friends like you who come along with us to help us to get the word out worldwide. So your investment in the Urban Alternative is a worldwide investment. It is a national and international investment. We can't do it without you.
Again, if you can help us with a gift of any size, we'll say thanks by sending you a CD copy of the series, The Eternal Perspective. Don't miss out on this limited time offer. Visit us today at tonyevans.org or give us a call day or night at 1-800-800-3222 and let one of our staff members help you. That's 1-800-800-3222. Well, here's Dr. Evans again with part 2 of today's message.
He takes us on a tour of his life. He gives us a sampling of how he tried to fill the hole that he was feeling deep down in his soul. A hole so big you could drive a Mack truck through it. And yet he wanted to get it filled. And so in chapter 2 he says, I said to myself, come now, I will test you with pleasure. I'm a party. I'm a party. I'm a party hardy. I'm going to have a good time. He said, I said to myself, let me test you, life. Let me find out what life is all about with a party. I mean, everybody likes a party. Everybody likes a jam. Everybody likes to be able to have a good time. He said, let me just have a good time. And so if I can have a good time, then I can feel alive. What did you do to have a good time? Because he says in verse 1, so go ahead and enjoy yourself. He says in verse 3, I explored with my mind how to stimulate my body. I wanted my body to feel something. I wanted to feel something. And so he says, I drank wine till I couldn't handle it anymore. I tested pleasure that would turn my body on so that I would feel this sense of life and purpose. Some of us would add to the wine Jack Daniels, Hennessy, crack, cocaine, and whatever else can give us that feeling of pleasure. Because isn't that what we gravitate to? What thing, what person, what scenario can make me enjoy this thing called life? Said, I tried it. I tried to have a good time. It was fun, but it wasn't filling. It tastes great, but it was less filling. Yeah, some of y'all know what that's talking about. I'll ride a roller coaster. I will ride a roller coaster. And I want it wild. I want the thrill. I want the higher the height, the deeper the dip. So that's the roller coaster I want. I want something that's going to make me feel it when it dips. The problem is, if I were to go to Six Flags or one of these other elite amusement parks, I got to stand in line for sometimes an hour to an hour and a half for a 90-second thrill. I'll get a high for about 90 seconds, but I got to wait an hour and a half on it. But to get high again, I got to wait another 90 minutes. Because I'm in a line of people who want a 90-second thrill. Solomon says that's what people are looking for. They're looking for the thrill. But they wind up singing the thrill is gone. Oh, I got some more songs to throw in here. He says, I sought pleasure. Notice his words. He says in verse 4, I enlarged works and I built houses for myself. I planted vineyards for myself. Verse 5, I made gardens and parks for myself. Verse 6, I made ponds of water for myself. Verse 8, I collected for myself silver and gold and treasures of kings and provinces. I provided for myself male and female singers and the pleasures of men and many concubines. I was a player. He said, and I did all this for myself because I wanted to feel it. So I spared no expense. Here was a man who didn't have to go to a party. He was the party because he could afford it. So he brought in the band. He brought in the male singers and the female singers. He brought in the men. He brought in the women. He brought in the liquor. He brought in the drugs. He could buy it because he's the king and nobody could deny him. How did the pleasure work out for you, Solomon? How did the party work? How did the good times roll? He said, verse 11, I considered my activities which my hands had done and the labor which I had exerted, and behold, all was vanity and striving after the wind, and there was no profit underneath the sun. He said, after the party, emptiness set in again. After the folk left, dryness set in again. He says, if you want to know what I'm talking about, he says, every one of you can test it when you leave service today, because it says it's like striving after the wind. So when you leave church today, go out into the parking lot and wait for the first breeze that comes your way. And the first breeze that comes your way, grab it. Grab a handful of blowing air. Hold on to it. Don't let it go. Don't let it escape you. He says you will discover when you strive after the wind, as soon as you grab it, you just lost it. He says, it was vexing to me, and it was vanity. Not because it wasn't fun. It just had no meaning attached to it. No purpose attached to it. He's talking about emptiness of life underneath the sun. That is, disconnected from God. So he tried something else. He said, I know what I'll do. I'll get me an edumacation. Verse 12, so I turned to consider wisdom and madness and folly. For what will the man do who will come after the king except what has already been done? And I saw that wisdom exceeds folly as light excels darkness. The wise man's eyes are in his head, but the fool walks in darkness. And yet I know one fate will befall them both. Then I said to myself, as is the fate of the fool, it will also befall me. Why was I then more wise? This also is vanity. All right, so let's look at what Solomon's saying. Solomon's saying he's the wisest man that ever lived, the Bible says. Nobody was more brilliant in knowledge, understanding, and wisdom than Solomon. So we'll just liken that to education, because he knew stuff. Education is big. If you live in the West, education, I hope you're challenging your children to get as much legitimate education as they can get, to go as far as they, given their time, talent, skills, and interests, can take them. Because he says the wise man is better than the fool. It's better to go to school and not go to school. It's better to know than to not know. It's better to be wise than to be a fool. He says that's better. But then he says, one day I was looking out the window, and I'm looking out the window, and I watched the fool walk by. This is the kindergarten dropout. The kindergarten dropout walked by. The fool, the guy who didn't know, the guy who had no understanding, the guy who didn't make anything of himself. I watched the fool walk by. And he said, when I watched the fool walk by, the uneducated guy, he says, I could see I was better off because I had some information, I had some knowledge, and I had some will. I was better than the fool, but then I got depressed. Well, what depressed you, Solomon? He says, one fate shall befall us all. My education won't keep me from the grave. My degrees won't keep me from the grave. In fact, the fact of the matter is the kindergarten dropout may live longer than me with the degree. He says death is the great equalizer between the fool and the wise man. As educated as you are, and I'm sure virtually everybody here has graduated from high school, most have graduated from college, then there's this group that has a master's degree, and then there's this other group that may have a doctorate degree, and I got bad news for all of you. Same news. That your education, knowledge, understanding, and informational base will not keep you from the grave because you're under the sun. And everybody under the sun, he says, shares the same fate. So he could not find meaning in education because it wasn't going to keep him alive any longer. And so as beneficial as his wisdom and knowledge was, he was reminded that one fate befalls them all, and therefore he could not find meaning. He says this also is vanity. It's without purpose. It's beneficial, better to be smart than to be dumb, but it does not give you purpose. So young people who are going to college, yes, it'll increase your employability. It'll increase your capacity to know things, to interact with things. It does have benefit, he says, but it doesn't give meaning. He said, let me try something else. Let me try something else. The party didn't do it. The education didn't do it. But money, 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 money. Solomon said the OJ's got it. The OJ's got the answer. He says, but verse 18, then I hated all the fruit of my labor, for which I had labored under the sun, for I must leave it to the man who will come after me. And who knows whether he will be a wise man or a fool, yet he will have control over the fruit of my labor. He says, when I thought about that, all I could say is, this too is vanity.
Dr. Evans will have more to say tomorrow about how to find the meaning you may be missing. In the meantime, we encourage you to follow up on this message by reviewing the full-length version on your own and by sharing it with friends. As always, copies are available on CD or DVD. The title to ask about is Changing Vanity into Victory. Better yet, ask about getting it as a part of Tony's 10-lesson series called The Eternal Perspective. Remember, if you contact us right away, we'll send you this brand new collection as our gift to say thanks for your contribution of any size to help keep this program coming your way. Get details right away and make your request online at tonyevans.org. That's tonyevans.org. Or call our 24-hour resource center at 1-800-800-3222. Well, tomorrow, as I said, we'll have more from Dr. Evans on the Bible's antidote to emptiness. I hope you'll join us.
The Alternative with Dr. Tony Evans is brought to you by the Urban Alternative and is made possible by the generous contributions of listeners like you.